It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, we're going to continue talking about the way men's mental health programs are coded into other things, specifically anger management and, violence prevention programs. My dry shampoo has not totally absorbed into my hair. So, but yeah, there's coded language for men's programs that are focused on, and they're intended to be the problem to solve because the thinking is men like solving problems. But I do think that they perpetuate this idea that men are problems to solve, that men are violent, that men are more angry than women. And it's not true. Just the social limitations on emotional expression are different for men and women. So let's start talking about this. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. If you'd like to sign up for a Leanna Care session, the link is in the description box of this video. Anger management is almost a meme now. I think there was a TV show named that or something like that. But, the whole anti-violence programs, like, the whole idea of men only engaging with mental health services when there's a problem, as opposed to men engaging in mental health services so that they can live their best life. That I think is a big issue, right? This idea that you have to protect society from yourself instead of it being, look, the reason you do these things is you're not happy and you deserve to be happy. So let's figure out what's going on and, maximize using what you got. And I really do think, because again, it's still Men's Mental Health Month, barely. Oh no, we've got one more week. Yes, we've got the 30th next week. I do think that's part of the problem. You only get support when things get bad enough that you can't handle it yourself. Instead of, well, why, no elite athlete does things completely on their own. No professional entertainer does things completely on their own. They have managers and agents and all that stuff. CEOs have people working for them. Why not engage the services of someone that can, give you some ways to just be happier? To me, I think that would take a lot of the stigma away, because, this idea of strength for men, women are kind and men are strong. You're not violating a feminine norm by going to, a therapist's office painted in pastel with like the flower Kleenex box and, pouring your soul out to somebody. It doesn't violate any feminine norms. It does violate that idea that men are supposed to be this, lone cowboy or a Ronin, or that handle it yourself. And these messages are really insidious, who they get into. It's amazing. The last guys you'd expect, because, otherwise they're sort of comfortable not being the cowboy. But that still is there. It's still impacting their choices. And I think it's important to talk about that because it's not fair. A lot of guys get into relationships that are very one way, that, heterosexual usually, but not always, where, the partner's just pouring their guts out and they just sit there and they're the rock and they never express themselves, and that starts catching up to you. And finally, You know, it's 7 years in. I just pulled that number out of my head. It doesn't mean anything specific, but you realize you can't express yourself because you're not supporting me when you do. And part of that is the garbage that women are fed in the media. And even though women know it's not real in the same way men know it's not real, little things do worm in where proof of a woman's femininity, proper womaning, is the insane and self-destructive shit men will do for that woman. And I always fail at that. I don't feel good when people are doing self-destructive stuff and claiming it's for me. I stand by my way, but I know that is womaning wrong by modern society. So you see how like the, toxic femininity kind of interplays with that man stupid to get this really unbalanced result where men are treated like they don't matter and women are treated like perpetual children. And there's really no way to extract the one from the other, which is why, when we teach this stuff, I wish we'd teach actual gender studies as opposed to just focusing on women. Because for every women's issue, there's a man's issue, and for every men's issue, there's a woman's issue. And until everybody has the right to a full range of emotions, which nobody does right now, we're going to continue to have problems. And I mean, what anger management often really is teaching people how to tell themselves it's okay and learning that walking away is better than blowing up. It's all about boundaries and resilience. And I wish they didn't have to call it anger management, but that's how they were able to get money for it, because funding is this weird beast that doesn't make a ton of sense. But what it comes down to is teaching people that, first of all, name your feeling. It's amazing how many people can't do that. Because if there's something you're not allowed to feel, like if you're never allowed to feel angry because it's unfeminine or dangerous, then you're never gonna say, I feel angry. You're never gonna name that feeling. You're never gonna accept that you have it because that's bad, right? Oh no, I can't be feeling that. I'm a good person, right? And that, of course, everybody feels anger. That's what's so stupid about, oh no, anger is scary. Anger doesn't have to be. Rage is scary. Anger can be useful. And learning how to deal with your own anger, manage your anger without exploding, it is a learned skill. And I wish we'd teach everybody it instead of just guys who have already picked up their first destruction of property charge, or worse, they hit a person. Because it really is look, first of all, just acknowledge you're angry. And you don't have to do anything about it. Getting over that feeling like someone is, you have to hit back. That's taught. That's a connection that is taught in childhood. I have to fight back. There are lots of ways of fighting back. And the smart ones are not the ones that are the most immediate, right? It's interesting because I was helping out with a friend. He's done these chatbot characters, and I was testing it out for him, and the bot was like way aggressive. And so I just sort of dismantled all the bot's arguments and was very like, and it just because the bot like backed off. And yes, the funny thing about the agreeability of the way those models are coming through, they're just like it was supposed to be sort of a aggressive character, but it just came on so strong. But like that is fighting back, right? Going, no, this isn't okay. And the whole thing of stay calm. They keep giving this stay calm advice. That is bullshit. Because the minute, when you're dealing with a narcissist or when you're dealing with an antisocial person, stay calm. Try to stay calm. You can't. Those people have an energy that is unnerving. No one is calm around those people. You can stay in control. You can be outwardly stoic. You can gray walk them, rock them, but you're not calm. And that's fine. That is human. If the expectation is that you stay calm in a situation where nobody is calm, you're going to lose control of your responses. Because then you start feeling like you failed whenever you lose your shit. It's terrible fucking advice that even like professionals give out. No, this stay calm thing is bullshit. When adrenaline is surging, you're not calm. You're having an adrenaline response. That means shit's going down. That ain't calm. Your heart rate, your respiration rate, all called bullshit on calm, right? You can feel it in your body, and that's fine. That is what your body is supposed to do in response to a threat. So that's the first bullshit that the system tells you that isn't realistic. The next thing is this idea that someone is taking advantage of you. And, putting the responsibility in the correct place. This idea that someone called you a name, and so you have to get them back. Let me give you an alternative there, okay? So you see two people having a disagreement, and they're both calling each other names and acting like children. Elon Musk, Donald Trump, right? Peak man stupid. You're going to go, well, those are a couple of assholes, just like gets popcorn, right? Now, imagine another scenario where one guy is just being that, and the other person is just going, there's really no need to call names. There's no need to make wild accusations like Epstein dude, really? That's pretty basic. Gee, never heard that one before, and they sort of stayed outwardly stoic. You'd think that person was more in control, wouldn't you? More in control of themselves, more of an adult. That's like I was talking about on Friday, the motivation to sort of maintain that self-restraint and not, and everybody matches energy, but not stooping to the other person's really petty level. And it's okay to be angry. I think we need to bring back a social acceptance of anger. And even yelling. I don't like this no aggression ever. Because aggression it does have a benefit. We have it for a reason. And teaching people healthy aggression. I had to do it when I was a games journalist because, I had an appointment at E3 every year. And every year E3 would lose my appointment. And every year I'd be stuck a half hour late because someone like Felicia Day jumped the line. And I had a schedule to keep. I had to be somewhat, you may call it assertive. To me, it felt more aggressive than I was comfortable being because I needed to get that coverage and then I needed to get to my next appointment. It's a very tight schedule at those things. And, there's a level, there are different socializations in the US and Canada. And so American socialization seems very aggressive to a lot of Canadians. But, you work with enough Americans and you realize that's just, that's just them. Maybe because they don't have, the winters that are quite as intense as ours. But, except for like, Vermont, and people in Vermont are pretty chill, right? I'm kidding. Boston, Chicago, they have pretty rough winters too. Buffalo. But you know what I mean, right? It's just different. But it is very like, whoa, when you first start dealing with it. Canadians are, ironically a lot more chill. Insert polar bear and penguin joke here. But that doesn't mean Americans are bad people, right? Across the board. It doesn't mean they have an aggression problem. It's just culturally different. It's like the way, certain European cultures talk with their hands, right? These things are just different. And I do think that sometimes you do need to be aggressive to get stuff done. And demonizing that is throttling people's passion, their creativity. Now, if it gets out of control and someone starts smashing things and people, obviously that's the level that we want to avoid. But strangely, we see that in men all the time in media. It's seen as unwanted but normal. And I think that's part of the problem. It's very hard for men to say, don't do that, when they're not shown alternatives to it in media. It's all Wolverine goes crazy, Hulk goes Hulk. You don't see guys get angry without it being super dramatic in kind of the mass entertainment that is a common cultural point. And so this anger, the whole thing like the Hulk or the Void or any character like that, it's this beast to be feared instead of just part of your existence that you can work with. Anger can be very motivating. If you are angry at something, that says something. That indicates that something needs to change. So being proactive with it and going, okay, what can I control? Okay, we're going to start there. That's the way it works. It's not suppression. It's not just keeping a lid on it and making the stuff you're shoving in the closet because it's undesirable and the pile gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That is not going to work. You're going to end up exploding again. The pressure is going to build and build and build instead of finding ways to process it. And, people hate the exercise is a way to process, but it is. It doesn't have to be strenuous exercise, just movement. Start with stretching. Do something, right? But also talking, not venting. We found that venting doesn't actually do much to make people feel better. Feeling heard and understood does. And so, and I think that a lot of people claim they're venting when they're really looking for understanding. Venting just means blowing off steam. Again, it hasn't shown to really be psychologically useful as opposed to learning how to process your emotions. And like I said, learning how to process your emotions means admitting you have them, first and foremost. And then it's a question of, okay, how do I satisfy this need in my brain to do something? Because that's the thing about anger, right? It's like, this is untenable. Something must be done. It's a really do something hot, burning emotion, right? And that's the challenge. So, I mean, yes, anger management is accurate, but if you think it more like anger channeling, um, that's more accurate. Like, what is something, where is somewhere you can put that anger that's productive? How is it taking out on the right thing instead of the wrong thing or the wrong person? Like, anger displacement is a huge issue. The shining example of the anger displacement that they teach you is a guy gets completely emasculated, completely humiliated by his boss at work. And he comes home and kicks the dog. Right. The dog didn't do nothing, but the dog couldn't fight back. Right. That's what you don't want to do. That's perpetuating the cycle of bullying. And this whole idea of women as refuge does sort of perpetuate that. The idea that women are supposed to make it all better. And a lot of women perpetuate this. I used to do content that this was talked about, and it's important to talk about. It's important to see that women are part of the cycle too. To a certain extent, yeah, you want to be there and you want to support, right? But the woman constantly being the soothe is no better than the man constantly being the rock, right? People can't be one thing all the time. People need a full range of emotions. And too many women are taught that yelling is always bad. Sometimes people are going to yell, you know? And it's often not about you. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people are misdirecting their anger at you. And learning to separate, you know, I have a top 10 phrase, and it's not therapy. Don't let problems that aren't your fault lead to mistakes that are. And that's the thing. Like, okay, I've got this feeling and it feels bad. That's a problem that's not my fault. You know, taking it out on someone who was not a party to what happened, that would be a mistake that is, right? Instead of going, look, I had a really bad day and I've learned to just go, look, I'm going to say something I regret if I continue to communicate. So I'm just going to stop right now. It's not you. I just need to figure this shit out. And it's easier for me as an introvert to do that. I'm not somebody who feels the need to bounce ideas off people. I do it. I like collaborating, but I don't need it. Being able to be alone with yourself, liking yourself enough that you can sit with negative emotions and realize they're temporary and they are not just going to take you over and burn you from the inside. That is a process that begins with treating yourself like your best friend. And it means stopping those insults that you think shouldn't hurt, but do. It means not beating yourself up preemptively because you're trying to toughen yourself up for the big bad world. The world will do it for you. Don't do the world's dirty work for it. Find something you truly believe is a good characteristic about yourself. Not, you know, these bullshit affirmations that feel like lies. Find something. Conscientiousness, you know, the fact that you want to be kind, the fact that you want to be considerate, anything. One good quality. That when you're struggling, when you feel like you made a mistake, instead of going, oh my God, I'm so bad, this is impossible, you go, okay, I am good at this. How do I use this thing that I am good at to kind of build a bridge over stuff that I'm not good at? I do that a lot. You know, you're like, okay, here's the thing I'm not great at. I'm going to use skills I am good at to try to get better at the stuff I'm not good at. It's very weird because I'm rotten at judging time unless I'm doing like a media thing, because I've learned to talk to time. So I can tell how long something is just by talking. But if I'm just sitting there, time will just go, right? And then, you know, getting out of bed in the morning is tough some days with an autoimmune disease. But one of the things I am good at is communicating. And so, I make it clear, look, I'm going to be late sometimes. This is why. It's not, I absolutely value your time. And people are understanding, it's just something that is me, and I've accepted it. And getting angry at myself because my body doesn't work the way I want it to, doesn't do much good. Doesn't change anything. And, so it's like, what can I change? Okay, I'm going to focus on those things. And the nice thing about changing what you can change, controlling what you can control, is you start seeing progress. And so that frustration isn't constantly building. Because that sense of accomplishment, that sense of achievement, marking your goals, seeing progress, that's really powerful. That's very, very important to alleviate depression and anxiety, feeling like you're getting somewhere. So having those, healthy goals that are based on things you can control, that will really help with that sense of existential anger. As will charting your progress. It's always great when I can say to a client, like, look, you earned this. There's been a lot of guys where stuff's working, going well for them right now. A lot of clients are struggling with stuff right now, but some people it's finally going well. And they're like, it's weird. I don't know what to do. And it's like, you know what? You earned this. I want you to take a moment and I want you to own it. You got to own your strengths as well as your weaknesses. You got to own your successes as well as your mistakes, right? If you own when you get things wrong, own when you get things right. It's the only way it works. Enjoy it. You deserved it. Yeah, it's temporary, but that's why you want to hold on to this moment. You want to hold on to those bright spots, not the bad spots. Because the truth is that good times are temporary, bad times are temporary. The only choice you have is what you center. And that has a lot to do with your outlook. And, as a society, we so focus on improvement, on improving your weaknesses instead of playing to your strengths. And that just doesn't, get the things you're not great at up to an acceptable level. But play to your strengths. Especially if, not only are you not good at something, you don't like it. We all got to do stuff we don't like sometimes, but there's got to be time to do stuff we do enjoy that makes us feel fulfilled. And those activities as well, within reason, it's not displacing any stuff you got to get done. That can really help with the emotional processing too. Within a lot of violent people are very frightened people. They're cornered animals. And it isn't very popular to have compassion and empathy for people who hurt other people. But it is possible to have compassion and empathy and not take their crap. And if people learn they can get something from you the right way, that if there's a way to do it right, there's no point in doing it wrong. Unless they have antisocial personality disorder or they're a stark raving narcissist. And the whole point is to do it wrong so they can dominate somebody. Those people are not worth your time and they're not worth your energy. They're irritating as fuck. So, instead of trying to not be angry, instead of trying to control your anger, focus on understanding it and using it to engage in action instead of just carrying it around. It does help a lot. And remember, it's okay to be angry. You don't have to do anything about it. You don't have to hit them back. In fact, they'll be less likely to try to egg you on again if they're not getting a reaction, especially online. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. You want to sign up for a Leanna Care session? Link in the description box below. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. Thanks for watching. Manly Monday.